All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another live edition of the London is Blue podcast, or potentially if you're watching it after the fact or hitting in your podcast feeds, it's a little bit of time traveling here because we're doing this live on deadline day, 30 minutes, actually 27 minutes left in the window at time of recording, maybe a little additional extension if there's some term sheets submitted or things of that nature. Dan, one of your hosts here alongside Nick and Sam, CFC Central, and we're just going to be reacting to today's big news. We're going to go through what Chelsea have been able to get across the line and get done, some things that have happened with incoming players, and then a bunch of what's been happening with the outgoing, but maybe is not as much as we would hope to. But again, 27 minutes, so we are going to be reacting live to a couple things, which is a little different than how we normally do it, Nick. But I know maybe just off the top, the Jaden Sancho deal getting the here we go from Fabrizio, getting seemingly done to the point where we should be looking to add a Chelsea fan, a lifelong Chelsea fan to our roster, which is kind of always a nice thing.
Yeah, very interesting deal. You think about, I think it was 2018 or 2019 when the rumors were started that he was going to join Chelsea, ends up joining Dortmund, ends up joining United, back to Dortmund, and now to Chelsea. Obviously frozen out by United in a similar way that Chelsea have done to Raheem Sterling, which is another consideration we'll talk about here. And, we end up getting a guy who I think primarily is a left winger, has some experience on the right, has some experience in a 10, but largely a left winger at a time where the left wing has not necessarily impressed under Maresca. And so potentially this is a way to inspire competition and add a pretty versatile player for a pretty reasonable overall fee. The reporting is that it's a loan with obligation. That obligation is between 20 and 25 million pounds. We saw some outrageous clauses earlier this week about, he has to get 20 goal involvements to trigger and it's like, no, man, that's just not the way these deals are ever going to work. So it's an interesting one. I mean, he is a player who I think needs the right situation to thrive, perhaps. And maybe, Old Trafford was just not going to be that for him. We certainly have our experience with those type of players at Chelsea, Dan, where, you have a great player who just doesn't, for whatever reason, vibe in the environment. And maybe Enzo Maresca is the right manager to get the absolute best out of him in a Premier League context, which we haven't really seen yet.
Yeah, so I mean, just to kind of, again, Sancho looks to be coming in, seemingly has gotten the green light from all parties. We know that there's also the Raheem Sterling exit to Arsenal with some type of loan for the season that is looming. Apparently lawyers looking to get that done and agreed. And we know, I think the biggest headline is that Chelsea are potentially going to go in front of goal and miss the net, miss completely on any type of striker. We know we had been linked as recently as yesterday with Ivan Toney, who seems to be all done and dusted going to the Saudi League, which left Chelsea in a one-horse race for Victor Osimhen to get the deal done, particularly after doing some business this window with Napoli. But I think, Sam, knowing that we have, again, 23 minutes now for Chelsea to get the deal done for Victor Osimhen.
We need the
all
ticker.
The reporting.
We need the ticker.
We do need a ticker. With all reporting indicating that basically it is a deal off scenario with maybe one last attempt, one last push to try to get some type of agreement to move this across the line. How are you feeling with Chelsea going another season without acquiring an additional striker to add to the mix beyond Nico Jackson?
I'm relatively calm, to be honest. Like, I know there's been a lot of doom-mongering and people have been worried about it. Yes, I would have ideally loved, younger striker somewhere between Guiu and Jackson to come in and offer, rotation. I was very happy with Samu after watching him. And obviously we did a pod together again prematurely, but yeah, he was fun to do. So yeah, again, Dan, I mean, I'm looking at this deal and I'm actually glad that we're sticking to our guns and saying, look, you fit into the wage structure or we don't need you. To be honest, I think that's admirable. We wouldn't have done that in the past. And I still think, at his cost plus wages, you need to be able to offer a striker who's plug and play, who's able to just come in, fit into whatever's the designated tactical instruction and just hit it from the word go. I don't think Osimhen does that, to be very, very honest. So 65 million with whatever 300 plus, well, 250 to 300 wages a week, not my kind of forward. And I think Maresca still has some interesting, options available to him. Felix and Kunku could be like sort of secondary nines to rotate with Jackson. So I don't think it's all too bad. It still can be fixed, but obviously you want to wait for the right opportunity. And again, not too worried.
I mean, 21 minutes left in the window, so anything is possible, of course. But, let's just pretend like Chelsea don't land any striker in this window when there were multiple options available, multiple rumors associated with the likes of John Duran and Ivan Toney lately, and of course Osimhen for the last 3 years. I don't know what the point is of pretending to negotiate if you know that he is here and you are here and no party is willing to budge. I don't understand why you would waste your time in that scenario. It seems like a poor use of time in a transfer window where you have 19 other players to try and find homes for. Like, why are you spending your time here and not willing to move and just hoping that he's going to move off? Like, he's in the prime of his career. I don't blame him for not taking less wages at all. I think, his agent is probably pushing him to keep that wage bill pretty high so that he can get paid as well. Dan, I think my frustration around the Osimhen thing is that there were plenty of, if you want to keep Nico Jackson as your number one striker, fantastic. I'm all for that. I love Nico, and I think he's a really good striker. But you need some backup between him and Guiu, I think, right? And yeah. I appreciate Sam's willingness to say, hey, we have some other options, but Nkunku has not really been tried out in that role, and Felix, I have no real feel for if he can do that job. I mean, when he was here a couple of years ago, it didn't really work out when he was played up front. So I think we're still missing something there from a striker perspective, personally.
Yeah, 20 minutes left in the window now. So again, reporting is actually Fabrizio Barano right now, 19 seconds ago on Twitter. Deal completely off for Victor Osimhen. No agreement with Chelsea and CFC delegation. Now leaving Napoli. If nothing happens from Saudi in the next 3 days, Osimhen will stay at Napoli, but he is not going to be part of first team squad. Relationship currently completely broken. So if we were waiting any type of firm reporting to finally douse the fire, to cool the jet engines, to absolutely take the wind out of the sails, to pop the balloon, whatever analogy you'd like to use or prefer to use, Victor Osimhen to Chelsea, not happening this window. Victor Osimhen not getting a move to Saudi, watching Ivan Toney instead get the move that he would have gotten if Ivan Toney was the individual that Chelsea would have gone after to get done and dusted. But this is just I think, representatively a failing of how to profile appropriately, how to set up a standard grouping of players that you want to go after, and being, I think, a little bit more ruthless and aggressive. I think there's a couple of times we've seen where Chelsea have wanted to go after a player and make that their identified player and say, we're not budging, we're going to go get it done. And if the player wants it, I think the Enzo example where the player is basically taking themselves out of training to help make the move work for Chelsea, to want to be a part of the team, to want to be a part of the club, to help work and finesse the scenario, versus a player or an organization that doesn't want to necessarily play the game. You have to have backup options. I mean, we're talking about how do you build a squad appropriately? How do you have the right type of players here? And it feels as if this is, again, another reflection on us maybe being too assumptive, that we hold the trump card, that we're operating from a position of power, and that we actually are not in that scenario in any way, shape, or form, particularly if we're adhering to that really, really stringent and strict wage structure, Nick.
No, I mean, of course. We're not. This is not the Chelsea of old with the swag of potentially being Champions League winners and challenging for a league title. I mean, this is just not, where Chelsea is. And also, the players in the front office are now different, right? They have a different style and approach to negotiations than the former administration did. And, I think there are times where we lauded the former administration for getting some really complex deals done with, bastard agents out there. And then there are some times where we got played, right? And similarly in this front office, I think you can say both things. For every Cole Palmer, there's been other deals where you're like, oh, I don't know about that. So this is just the window. It's just the way that it works. This is where I do have sympathy for front office, because I know this job is not easy, and this is not me like placating when Stanley Stewart, Shields, and the rest. But I think for this one in particular, Chelsea have been chasing this guy for years, right? All the way back to when he was at Lille, and just can't, for whatever reason, get it going. And all the talk of Drogba and Mikel trying to convince this guy to come to Chelsea. If we were never willing to pay the wages, Sam, I simply don't know what we were doing other than building sandcastles in Napoli. It doesn't make any sense to me.
To be honest, like Nick, when I'm looking at it from an outsider's perspective, I think we were relying on Napoli breaking down somewhere in the negotiations because they'd already signed Lukaku. The relationship had completely broken down with Osimhen. And Osimhen basically had two options. Either he goes for a hefty payday and completely ruins his chances of getting a big move elsewhere in Europe. And I think as a delegation, we went in saying, look, you have us and you have nobody else in the picture. So you might as well sort of like come to a middle ground, which is, again, you get the wage that you want. Obviously, not Saudi levels, but you get an incentivized wage structure. Fit in. And, when we are in the Champions League next year, you probably get exactly what you want, which is again the same structure that Enzo is probably hanging on to. You're not going to see him play for 150. He's 100% getting 200 plus if you make Champions League next season. So if he's unwilling to negotiate there, again, these sort of deals are 50-50. We saw Enzo sort of like the negotiations where he again like went, scored for Benfica, thumped the badge, blew out kisses, and then 3 days later he was playing for us. So again, anything can happen. De Laurentiis is one of the most nasty negotiators in Europe, unfortunately. But now it's Napoli's problem. They're in an absolute quandary. Fabrizio's stream, like I was watching it, and he said this is a disaster, like an unmitigated disaster for Napoli. They didn't make any sort of backup plans for this to have like 300K wages on their books and not even be in the squad.
Well, Sam, I would push back on you because I think, in talking over the last couple of days to journalists, the issue that Chelsea had is not with Napoli on the fee. I think the fee is relatively straightforward here. I think it's the fact that Osimhen does not want to make less money and even with incentives have the possibility to make more money than he is making right now. Like, he's a player who feels like he's earned what he's gotten to this point. You can't fault the guy. He was given the contract, right? Just like some of our guys have been. And we were not willing to meet him there. So we have now wasted an entire summer not willing to budge and hoping that he would say, oh, absolutely, I'll just make less money. It seems like a poor strategy is all I'm saying. And it seems like a huge waste of time when, by all reports, you could go negotiate with Ivan Toney or John Duran or any of your other striker targets and come out feeling like you've actually done a job. Like, there's just nothing to be done between these two numbers.
I completely agree with you. And for me, like the ideal solution would have been instead of getting Telemann, who's basically like none of us know where he is. He's completely MIA. Name popped up saying Birmingham loan and then disappeared off the radar for the rest of the evening. If you would have paid slightly more and sort of swap Matson and get Duran, like for me, that would have been a win-win. 100% a win-win. Whether you rate him or not, he's a young prospect we've been looking at since the January transfer window. So he would have been the target. But I think the club just again went to T1. Samu was apparently, target number one. Ben Jacobs mentioned it on the pod with us. Matt Law said that he was, chalked in as number one. And suddenly he goes for 15 million with like part ownership and 50% of your clause. And again, when those things start to happen, you understand like Mendes is at play. So we didn't touch that with a 10-foot bamboo, which I'm again happy for. Benjamin Sheshko decided to stay with a wage increase. So you basically had all your options sort of pulled out from under you. And again, I will sort of say, push back to you, Nick, and say, look, it's better than signing Dominic Calvert-Lewin. on like 15 million, and then you get
That sounds
stuck
right.
and you have no idea what to do with him because he's shattered physically and he, can't replicate his best form. So I would rather say just wait next summer. Good strikers,
if
unfortunately are.
if we can, Sam, if we can. That's all I'm saying.
And just to be fair, the if that Nick is referencing is the rumored potential transfer ban that may or may not be incoming. So just something to keep in mind as well. So I think again, we're just going to say goodbye to Victor Osimhen at this point in time. We're going to say a fond farewell because he's just not affiliated with the club. He's not going to be a member of Chelsea at least for the next 6 months or even the next season. And so done, dusted, not a Chelsea player, not going to get the support from this grouping of individuals. Let's talk about players who are, as of time of recording, again, 11 minutes left in the window. The report is Raheem Sterling has arrived at Arsenal's training ground. That this was, I think, one of the ones that we were very interested in to see, would we actually be able to get Raheem Sterling off the books? Would we be able to get him to another club? We know the preference for coming to London was a part of the reason from the move from Manchester City to Chelsea. So staying in London was going to be highly advantageous to him. We had seen links to Aston Villa with that John Duran swap that we had heard about previously before. But now it seems as if he will be making the switch across town, will be going to play for Arsenal for a season, joining the likes of Petr Cech and Willian, and having the opportunity to play for both clubs, one that has European glory and one that has absolutely fuck none. And this is going to be a scenario where he's getting an opportunity to be involved in that attack, potentially get an opportunity to try to challenge for second place. And we'll see how that works out for him. But I mean, we got to feel good about that type of move happening.
Well, I mean, if you're going to bring in Jaden Sancho, I mean, and he's already banished, I mean, I think this is probably your best case scenario on this one. So, at least for one season, we'll see what the actual final terms are, if there's an option or obligation or whatever the hell it is. For one season, you get the $350K off the books, whatever the hell he was being paid. And, again, I don't love the way that this transpired personally. I don't think he's caused a ruckus. I don't think he's thrown his toys out on the pram. I think, by and large, he's not lived up to the hype that he came with, but I don't think he's been a bad corporate citizen either. So, I just don't love exiling players. I think it's just a bad look and it devalues them. And that's why we're not probably able to get this done on a permanent. But, I do think, for all of the hand wringing about where he'll go, where he won't go, the swap with Sancho, all this sort of stuff, the fact that big clubs are still interested in him should tell you something. And that, this might have been a foolish first big purchase for Chelsea, but it wasn't without some merit attached to it either. So, all that being said, good luck to Raheem as a human being. Terrible luck to Arsenal as a club. And I hope he just scores some meaningless goals over there. That's what I really hope for.
And Sam, as we think about this move, it really helps to establish, the hierarchy in the attack, and kind of maybe just thinking about Jaden Sancho coming in. How does he sit within that grouping? I mean, I know that we've kind of identified who at least some of our first choice attackers are. Obviously, I think Nico Jackson and Cole Palmer are the 1 and 2 last season's best contributors from goals and assists in the team. But then who is that third, fourth individual across the individuals we brought in? And where does Jaden Sancho maybe sit in the attacking hierarchy at the moment?
Yeah, first of all, I think I may be in the minority here, but maybe like selling Sterling or sort of like loaning Sterling to Arsenal is a horrible, horrible move. It's an absolutely terrible move in every sense. Like I'm sitting here thinking this is like maybe giving Arsenal, 60% of the tools that they needed to sort of push. They don't have depth for Bukayo Saka. Martinelli did not provide any kind of like goal assist sort of thrust for them. So he covers both wings for you. And I know there's been a lot of flack about Sterling, and he's undoubtedly like in terms of from a physical standpoint, he's gone. Like he's basically a 35-year-old, trying to make a living. And our perception is again like influenced by how much we pay him. Now, if he's taking a wage cut and going there, I think he becomes immediately an incredible asset for them in terms of covering both flanks, being a recognized goal scorer, also playing in a system which Arteta knows and Sterling knows very well. So it's a great tactical fit as well. And again, you go back and see, the dreadful season we had in 22-23. He was the guy who finished with the top goals and assists in the league. He was again tied with Conor Gallagher for third last season. So per se, he hasn't been bad. He's been offering one goal or assist every 90 minutes. Is it good for 350 a week? No, it's not. But at reduced wages, just like what we're trying with Sancho, he's an excellent deal for Arsenal, and that's what worries me because we're maybe not at the point in terms of challenging Arsenal for the title, but we're definitely giving them a chance to do what we all don't want to come to pass for them to win a league title. So I think it's a bad move. But again, Juventus weren't going to pay him the wages that he needed. You don't want, a loan offer that says 3 million plus like four pizzas. You genuinely don't want that from Italian clubs. So might as well, make hay when the sun shines and hope for the best, plan for the worst. But in
Uh,
terms of like Sancho, yes, I think you look at the demarcated squad structure now. You've got Mikhailo Mudryk and Jaden Sancho covering the left. You've got Palmer and Kunku in the center. I would say Pedro Neto and Madueke covering the right. And you've essentially got Joao Felix and Nico Jackson covering center forward. In my mind, that's how the attack looks. Obviously, Felix being shunted around because he can play those left-sided roles as well. But now that you don't have a second center forward, might as well use him as a nine. He has played there before for Benfica. Before he went to Atletico Madrid, he used to play in a front two with Haris Seferovic. So he does have experience. And again, like I look at Felix on the screen and he doesn't pop out to me as a guy who's 6 feet tall. He appears quite short and he moves, much like a 5'7", 5'8" kind of guy, but he's good in the air. He again knows how to play and run the forward line like a false nine, and that fits Maresca's brief. So you might see him at center forward. I'm not sort of discounting the possibility. So again, maybe that's sort of like clouding my perception in terms of how bad is it to miss out on Osimhen. I don't think it's the end of the world. If we do hit a transfer ban next season, I can come on stream again and feel free to bash 100%.
I mean, that is a good caveat to buy yourself. A 1 year type of opportunity to come back and revert your opinion is always nice to have on offer. Again, we are 4 minutes left in the window before it shuts, which is crazy. Think about, we started this with 30 minutes left. And what we're seeing now is actually deals collapsing. So we're seeing the loan moves for players absolutely falling apart in this way, shape, or form. You have the Armando Broya deal, which had kind of come back online to Ipswich, that apparently has now disappeared again. It materialized and then very quickly dematerialized. Yeah, the David Datra Fofana move that was looking to happen to Sunderland, that is likely not going to be happening now. So he would be staying. That might also be another striker consideration that Chelsea would have. He obviously had a little bit of a end of the season run on the second half of his loan in the Premier League that gave him something, which was there. And then we're also hearing that from Nazar Cancelo that the Trev Chalobah loan to Crystal Palace will likely need the deal sheet to get those extra 2 hours to finalize, again, another London to London club move. The 1 year loan for Trev Chalobah, just another move that's looking to get done. And 3 minutes left in the window. But I mean, there's a whole lot that is kind of coming in hot, coming in fast, and just it feels as if we're going to have a lot of really, really bloated non-Premier League team, PL2 type squad trainings based upon the fact that we did not get a couple of these players out of the club.
Yeah, just I don't think we touched on Chalobah yet, and so we have time before the end. But a weird straight loan. I mean, the opportunity to sell this guy, I think, in the window went away when he wasn't with the team for the U.S. tour. You basically devalued him then and there, and I don't think they've been able to find a suitor who will take him, which is the strangest thing in the world to me after you watch our defense play against Servette, that he couldn't do a job in this team. So, if he does go to Palace, he's a player that I wish all the luck in the world to. he definitely deserves to play. He is a Premier League caliber center back and has flexibility to move into different positions and deputize as well. So really, 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 really hope that Trev has a good season wherever he is. Who knows if this deal actually gets through or not. They still have 2 more hours apparently. So
a fun comment from our good friend in the Discord, Mr. Thurman, saying that he was excited that they've trimmed the squad down to the league cap of 53, and then indicating that's the wrong type of football that we are considering if
the
it's
NFL,
a 53-man roster.
Come on, we're 1 week away.
It's the problem with American club owners, right? They mistake the type of football from time to time. Sam, is there any others? I mean, there was also the interesting David Washington deal where he was going to be sold to Strasbourg and then was not going to be sold to Strasbourg, and now apparently is going to be sold to Strasbourg, which is just another interesting opportunity.
The weirdest one of the whole day.
I think the term you're looking for is insider trading. Like I think that's what is happening here.
Shell
I mean,
Company
if that was
FC.
if this was the vision all along, I'm willing to wear like very rose tinted glasses on this one and say, okay, what, get it done. But yeah, I mean, you buy him for 20 million and he plays 58 minutes, and you basically like take absolutely no hit on him and sell him on. I think that's again unfair to Strasbourg, and as long as it helps people get out of the club, again as a fan, I have to cheer it on. But it was always going to be like outgoings were always going to be the issue for us. We've just had far too many people, and even with 3 sporting directors, I think it was just going to be super tough to push them all out the exit door. But happy that the major ones are sorted out. Lukaku's gone. Sterling again, sort of like on his way. Medicals are on. Broya again, injury sort of like maybe affected the way that we could push him out to different clubs. So maybe that one I'm willing to chalk off. But yeah, as long as you get maybe a healthy squad size for Maresca to sort of choose from, because it's going to be a long season, we can figure it out. So not too hassled, but really wish that we could have pushed like maybe 5 or 6 players off.
So now that the window is closed, it's 6:00 Eastern time, which means the window is done. Again, 2 hours left to get, if you submit a deal sheet to get an opportunity. Yeah. Cheers and happy close of window to you, all who celebrate this high holiday. This is an opportunity now to reflect back on the business that Chelsea did. I want to start talking about the incomings that Chelsea had over this. You look at players like Pedro Neto coming in, Joao Felix, Kieran Dewsbury Hall, Jorgensen, Kellerman, Penders, who ends up going out on loan. I mean, there's definitely a list of people to choose from, maybe not as high profile as we've had in the past, but maybe just with a quick one answer in the name and then a brief summary of like why you think it was the best addition to the squad. Nick and then Sam, who are you most excited that we added in? And then obviously I think you include Jaden Sancho in that as well. Don't get too excited.
Well, yeah, I'm excited the window's over. So that's good.
Come on, find some positivity. These are Chelsea players now. You have to back them. You have to support them. You have to get a little excited for somebody.
I would probably go Neto.
Okay.
I think.
Already had an assist. Already had an amazing goal celebration for the assist that he contributed.
Yeah, I mean, so Neto kind of is weighed down because I think we got Mendes, and that take what you want from that. I'm not going to diagnose that for you, but yeah, Neto has an interesting skill set. I like that he's more of a provider, and thrives out on the wing. And I think based on everything that we've heard and seen so far about Maresca's system, like the wingers are absolutely critical to the way this team is going to play. So I think Neto, I again, we'll talk about the implications, the overall business. I think he's it.
Sam?
Yeah, I was sort of going to say Neto. Thank you so much, Nick. But yeah, the second one that I would sort of point out is surprisingly Aaron and Silvino.
Mm.
I think that there's a big hole at centre back. Obviously, like Trev is being carted out to any club that will give him notice. Disasi hasn't been good. Wes has had his injury issues. And if you're looking at a young centre back who can obviously offer you two-footed passing, also like some incredible physical aspects, then at his age, he's arguably one of the best young prospects in the world. Obviously, word hasn't spread as much as Estevaos has or Gentry Biases has because he hasn't played too much because of injury. But the more people see him in the next coming season, hopefully, the more they realize that, we've got again a superb talent in defense. So he's probably going to be fast tracked. I feel like especially if we do get that um, infamous transfer ban, then I do think that there's an option that you can just bring him in and rotate him for European competitions. So I'm super excited to see him here. I think he'll do well.
Yeah, I think I'm probably aligned with Nick. I think Neto was the one that was exciting for me in terms of the announcement. Again, I think the fee is fine as long as he gets on and can stay healthy, and the ability to cover across multiple positions in the front to bring in someone who understands the Premier League has to be really above all else something for just change the profile of the player that we were recruiting a little bit, showed some willingness to get outside of the mold that we put together. So really like that. When we think about then the other way, so Chelsea have moved on from several players this window, maybe not as many on a permanent deal as we would like, but plenty who have moved on either a loan with some type of obligation or with a loan in the hopes that next year, maybe we'll be able to get them to a new permanent destination. Nick, who is the individual that has left Chelsea either permanently or for the short term that you are most happy with that we were able to get the deal done at this window?
There's only one answer to
I
this
think all
question.
of us could, yeah, all of us could say this together in sync, and it would come out. The same name would come out, 100%.
1, 2, 3. Lukaku. We
Nepo
did it.
Rigobalaga.
Yeah. Dan, you screwed it up. Yeah, it's Lukaku. Good riddance. There's never been a worse transfer in the history of Chelsea Football Club than Lukaku, and there have been some real doozies. But he is now not a part of our team. He's reunited with his spiritual mentor and Antonio Conte, and I wish the absolute meh to him for the rest of his career. He I mean, real bad transfer. I remember how excited I was when he was signed. And, those first few games in a Chelsea shirt, we thought we had an absolute monster coming off a European title. We were so excited. We finally signed our number 9 and, he sabotaged it. And that is something that, I think will put big clubs off of some of these big signings for a long time, that you can sign a player for $100+ million. That player can absolutely go AWOL and devalue himself so much that you do a series of loans and a very low transfer to get him out of your club. I mean, it's incredible. So yeah, very excited that he is no longer a part of Chelsea Football Club.
I mean, when you look at some of the other outgoings that we had, obviously Ian Matson goes to Aston Villa on a permanent deal, 44.5 million euros there. Conor Gallagher leaving 42 million euros. Lewis Hall getting the official, that was a loan with obligation at 33 million euros. Lukaku, 30 million euros. Amari Hutchinson to Ipswich on a permanent. I don't imagine that they stay up. If they do, good for them, but 23.5 million euros there. So, I mean, some good business for players that have not necessarily either been involved in a part of Chelsea's permanent first team planning or have been maybe were on the outskirts looking in, maybe outside of Conor Gallagher, who featured a substantial amount of minutes over the entirety of last season. But it does feel as if when we push came to shove, we did get some good incoming wages in terms of what we were able to kind of generate, wages off the book, and then also transfer fees that we were able to secure in these deals that we're able to get. I mean, that's 175 million when you add in the fee for also adding Diego Moreira for 2 million to Strasbourg. So like just in general, 175, and then you're looking to get the Raheem Sterling wages off the books with that loan. The Kepa wages come off the books with that loan, even though you have to extend him an additional year with his contract. So we did get some funky things done, but we still have a list now of players that we were not able to move out, and it feels as if there's going to be some work to do on the training grounds. And hopefully the club backs Maresca appropriately to give him the opportunity to say yes, to say no, to involve who he wants, and to, not make life difficult for him.
Well, I mean, would you like to name all the players, Dan, that we didn't figure out a solution for? Because I think it's important. The club has chosen a tactic that we haven't seen very often, which is for first team players to isolate them and some back deals to figure out if there are some young players who, can go out on loan or be sold for quote unquote pure profit. And by all accounts, they did a pretty lousy job on sales. This is not a situation that has resolved itself in any real way. I mean, you found a home for Petrovic and Kepa and Lukaku. You didn't find a home for Angerin and Castledine. Those are the ones, Raheem Sterling, maybe. We'll wait to see official confirmation of that. Maybe Chalobah. We'll wait to see official confirmation of that. But you still have Bergstrom. You still have Chilwell. You still have Cassidy. You still have Angelo. You still have David Datcher Fofana. You still have Armando Broya. You still have Mark Guiu. We talked about a potential loan for him if a striker were to come in. So it looks like he's staying with the first team. Zach Sturridge, it looks like is going to go. Harvey Vale turned down Saudi, so he's still around. Matos, I don't believe, has officially gone anywhere, although there are rumors that he was going to. Billy Gee, Stutter, all these sort of these players. Like, there's some in there, but there are a lot of loans, and I think those loans were born out of desperation because the list is so fucking long that everyone is playing us now. Like we put our position out there, we've exiled a bunch of people without a plan, and now we're stuck with them. And best of luck to everyone involved trying to make amends on that front.
Yeah, you didn't know that there was a desert in Cobham where these players were stranded, but boy, oh boy, we just found the patch of dirt where they're going to be playing and training with one another. Sam, as we think about trying to grade this window, and again, knowing that there's a couple hours left here for everything to get done and dusted, for deals to be officially announced, as long as they were submitted by the deadline, or the term sheets were submitted by the deadline, 1 to 10, 1 being worst, 10 being best. How are you rating the overall window for Chelsea when you think about, did we add the right players? Did we get out the players we needed to? Did we secure the appropriate loans? Can you give me a number, and can you give me your justification?
But I'd say it's a 5, like a solid 5. Let's go with that. Because again, like Nick mentioned, I think the priority should have been outgoings. And everybody knows now that we're in a position where you can come at a fire sale and pick whoever you want. Carney, for example, just went from being somewhere around a 25-30 million player to down in the dumps. And I think, any club smart enough to sort
One
of
sec, Sam. I'm going to update real quick as we're going live on this here. David Ornstein dropping that Everton have submitted a deal sheet to sign Armando Broya from Chelsea. They've agreed to a loan with a 30 million buy option.
Wow.
And that is just happening right now, again, as we're recording. Maybe that changes the score for the window.
Just 6.5.
That's if they stay
6.5 it is.
That's if they stay up. I mean, good Lord, they're in trouble. I don't even know if they have any money. Like, I don't think they're solvent.
Again, we're just dropping it as they occur, but wanted to make sure that you had the freshest information if you needed to officially change your number there.
Let's go 6. 6 it is. I think Broya was one of the hardest to move for me. So yeah, let's go with 6. But yeah, again, Kellyman, the loans, Cassidy, Chukwuemeka, Trev, whoever else you wanted to exile, get out of your project. I think those should have been moved. And then you don't want a Graham Potter-like situation where, again, like, your squad becomes completely foul and everybody drops their levels because of what has happening for non-football reasons. It's great that they're training aside, but word gets around, players talk to each other. It's nice to have like a nice, good, healthy squad to go with. So that should have been the issue. And pre-Maraska signing, I said there should be like focusing on two particular positions, which was left back and center forward, and we essentially didn't get either. Kukuraya, for all the credit in the world, did incredibly well at the Euros. But if you did want a specialist left back who could also invert into centre back or central midfield, I think we missed out. Obviously, Calafiori would have been, the marquee signing there in that respect. We still don't know how he's going to do, but again, a super rare position for Maresca there. But centre forward should obviously have been reinforced much, much earlier. Then we wouldn't have, been waiting here fighting with Al Ali of all clubs to land our number one target. So, yeah, 5.56 maybe.
That
Nick,
powerhouse.
Nick, what's your score and justification?
It's a 5. It's a failing grade. We let players go and Conor Gallagher for peanuts. And
Is it really peanuts?
It's peanuts, Dan. For a player of his caliber, everyone agrees that fee was incredibly low and dumb, and the whole process was stupid. So I think, yeah, it's a failing grade. It's a 5.
Just to, again, update as we're doing this live. Fabrizio Romano with the here we go. Raheem Sterling to Arsenal. Agreement done for the loan move. Chelsea accept final conditions and the player wanted the move. Also spoke to Mikel Arteta. Agreement done. Documents expected to be okay soon. He has the green check mark emoji and the lock and key emoji putting it down. So Raheem Sterling, again, Fabrizio Romano putting the news there that it is a here we go on.
Yep. I'm back to a 5. I'm back to a 5. I'm back to a 5.
I'll go 5.5. How about that? I mean, it's still a failing grade in any respect. And like, look, you have to ask yourself, as we did in Keep Sell Loan at the end of the year, or the beginning of summer, I should say, are Chelsea a better squad now than they were? And I don't think you could equivocally say yes. I don't think there's anything out there that you could equivocally say, yeah, we're much better this summer. And to Sam's point about the Potter year, which I think we're all still kind of wincing from, this is not going to be a fun situation at work.
The Potter months, not Potter year, or we need to be very accurate within that definition.
I suppose, man. I don't know. I like whatever the worst season that we've had in a long time, we still had a bunch of people around who were upset that they weren't getting their fair shot. That is certainly what's going to happen here this year now, because you didn't, your 18 sporting directors couldn't go out and get these deals done. And they have no one to blame but themselves. Like, you work on transfers all year round. The window's only open for this long, but you work for this long to build relationships with clubs, verify that the club is interested in the talent. You can do that in February. Like, you don't need to do that 2 days before the window closes. So yeah, it's poor planning across the board. And I am underwhelmed with the first team level caliber talent that we brought in. Do I think that like a Pedro Neto could brighten up our wings? Sure, no doubt. Maybe Sancho reinvigorates and finds a 15 goal and assist season out there and is really committed to the cause. Great. But we are not better at striker. We're not better in central midfield. You can argue we're not better in defense, and especially if Chalobah goes, and you're now kind of stuck. And I don't, I think it's going to cause an interesting year to unveil itself to us. Dan, I don't know how you feel about the window and the rating.
Yeah. So if I start from a 10 as like a perfect score and start to pull back why, I would give it, I think, somewhere in the realm of like a 6. Is we didn't sign a new either backup striker or competing striker for Nico Jackson. I think the left back point that we made is like, okay, we've got Vega now, but is he really challenging to take over the spot from Marco Correa? No. So I would say that we didn't get the right reinforcement there. He's someone that maybe gives you defensive mid cover in terms of the fact there. So, I mean, there's a positive within that move. And, we had a chance to see him. He'll get opportunity to develop being, with the Europa Conference League matches that we'll have an opportunity to play. We've got some cup matches. I think you didn't necessarily get, I think, a transformative center back signing. I mean, Tosin is interesting, but at least right now doesn't look to have pushed us to a higher level in that regard. And so I think if I just said each one of those represents a point on a 10-point scale for me, I would say that those are 3 points off the board, which would take you to 7. And I think there was a lot of outgoing that still needed to get done. I feel in general that we are better in attack overall, keeping Madueke, pushing Mudryk down the starting lineup, getting Cole Palmer a bump in his wages to recognize the reporting today also that we're going to go back to the table with Nico to give him an improved contract as well. Cause you just want them focused on playing here. Like, again, it's not like an incoming or outgoing, but like, that's just a general football operations. Like, we've not always done the good job in the past of making sure that our players are happy. I like the Pedro Neto move. There was the reporting just now that we did submit the deal sheet for Jaden Sancho to get that done. I'm more interested in watching him play than I am watching Mykhailo Mudryk play at this moment. So I think in general, like, we're not as full of a squad as I feel like we should be, but I'm at least excited by some of the moves that we made. And I feel like it puts us in a position to the point you made, Nick, like, I think there's going to be a lot of like fun 3-2 wins this season that are a little bit more chaotic, a little bit more EKG stress test inducing, but maybe way more fun than the losses that we had that should have been draws, and the draws we had last season that should have been wins. I feel like we're going to have more fun watching Chelsea this season.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. And I'm not being overly negative. I simply don't know. I don't have a real feel for this team yet. I would have loved for them yesterday to go out and crush Servette in no uncertain terms and just bury that game and, make a real statement that we can string a couple of results together. But, we're at this point where, you're off and on again right now. And I think there's going to be a lot of off and on early in the season, I should say. We'll have a really great performance, bookended by two very mediocre or poor performances, or vice versa, right? And the way that good teams build throughout a season is by stringing results together, building momentum, becoming really, 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 really difficult to play against. And I don't think we're difficult to play against at all. Like, I have significant concerns about the midfield and defense and goalkeeper. And maybe the attack is better, but if 3 out of 4 is the same or worse potentially than they were last year, I think my pick at 7th is about right at the season long finish.
So just to clarify, so you started with a 7th position finish. You have not moved up or down on that. You're keeping them locked at a 7th. You don't feel like we've gotten closer to being a 6th place or a 5th place.
Absolutely not. I mean, we don't have a midfield that can work together. I mean, that's the long and short of it. You watch the games this season, there's been no midfield to speak of. And because they haven't formed a relationship, I think the closest we got to a midfield was against City, but that was largely out of possession and trying to defend against what is a pretty damn good team. I have significant concerns about the midfield, and I have all summer. The minute you let someone like Connor go and you don't replace him with someone better, and Dewsbury Hall is not better than Connor Gallagher, it's a real problem. And, you can talk all you want about attack wins games and defense wins championships and all these sorts of things, but the midfield runs a football club, pure and simple. For me, the midfield is the most important thing that you can address in any sort of transfer window. And we have Caicedo and Enzo who can't work together. We have Lavia and Caicedo that's not creative enough. We have Lavia and Enzo that is too lightweight in defense and not really a great 4th option in Dewsbury Hall to play either one of those central roles. And if we throw Cole Palmer in the center, we're extra light in defense, right? Because Cole's, for all of his incredible abilities, is not what I would call like a two-way player right now. So this is it's going to be really, really interesting. I'm sticking at 7. I don't know, Sam, how you feel about, the season and the table finish, but I think we're going to struggle for consistency.
Yeah, my mind is somewhere else. It's almost 4 in the morning, so I'm hoping that, I can go to sleep wake up and not check my phone to see that part of the deal sheet for Armando Broya being submitted was us submitting one for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Please do not make that happen. If that happens, do not wake me up. But honestly, again, like I've come to a point where I'm surprisingly sanguine about it. I think barring injuries, I think that's going to be the biggest issue for us. If we manage to keep a clean bill of health, I see us going somewhere between fourth to sixth. Like sixth being, the every set piece goal is scored against us, and like we managed to again underperform our XG by a hilarious margin. Like that is sixth, but a little bit more fortune, and we finish in that fourth spot. So I'm slightly more optimistic. I think tactically there are issues that can be fixed. It's not beyond repair, but the quality is there. Like in my opinion, there's just a lot of good quality on the board, and if you can blow out 14 of those 20 teams, then you finish fourth.
Yeah, there's a lot still left to do. I think I am probably on the more optimistic side. I don't know if we're going to get as close to third, but I do think it is somewhere in that 4 or 5 position where Chelsea should land themselves at the end of the season here if all things go our way. And again, we always haven't always had the best luck in a Premier League season, but maybe it'll change and we'll have just a touch more of it this season than we had last season, particularly on the injury front. If we just not have the number of injuries we had last season, and you can pick your actual first choice 11 the majority of the matches, you're going to be in really, really good shape.
Are you, though? Because you're playing a ton more matches this year. Like, I mean, last year's 55-game season or 50-game season is this year's 70-game season, right? So if you have an injury problem this year, you're cooked. The game is over. I love that we're splitting hairs about fifth, sixth, or seventh here. Like we're just like a little bit off of each other in terms of Conference League. But hey, you know what, Dan? If you win the Conference League, Europa League beckons.
Europa League guaranteed.
There it is.
Look, you want to get back to Champions League, though. You want to get the Jordan Brand deal. You want to get a very lucrative front of kit sponsor because who knows? Maybe we won't have any this season and we'll just punt to next year. But that's a lot of the questions that Chelsea are still going to have to finish. Again, the big headlines on...
Can we go back?
I mean, probably about as defunct as some of the players that we were not able to get out in this window. That would be a way to think about it. But look, Chelsea didn't get Osimhen done, didn't get Ivan Toney done. The striker position remains something that Chelsea did not get resolved, but Chelsea did add in attack in this window. Again, as of time of recording, Jaden Sancho deal sheet has been submitted, so we should hopefully in the next couple hours see that as an official here we go. And then the other deals, obviously Chelsea getting Raheem Sterling off the books for at least this season, along with Armando Broya, is something to consider as a plus column in a moment. Though if you're Sam, you disagree completely and you think Raheem Sterling is going to help Arsenal push for the title, which would be the most disgusting thing to happen. But let's hope we're not living in that darkest timeline. But that's going to do it for our wonderful live transfer day, deadline day live that we did with you all. We really appreciate you joining with us. If it's first time here, subscribe to the channel, like the videos, comment. We're here pretty regularly, and we'll be back live after the Crystal Palace match to talk more about Chelsea. So stay tuned for that. We look forward to seeing you this weekend and enjoy the rest of your Friday or Saturday, wherever you are in the world.